Good morning, everyone. Let's try it again. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Oh, okay. My name is Yitzhak Kesselman, and I'm super excited to be here with you today and speak about Fabric IQ, the mystery that nobody knows what it does. So I hope to demystify that. And we have a packed agenda also with demos and customers telling their story. So let's get started. So I lead Fabric IQ and also real-time intelligence. And we have another session today, so you can join that as well. So everybody knows that AI is transforming the world. And the question is how we make it real. How we make it real for you and how we make it concrete for your business and your companies. And we know that data is the fuel that powers AI. And we're speaking about data, we're speaking data across multiple facets of data. Of course, the traditional databases, SQL, NoSQL, but also real-time data feeds. And they're all interconnected into one big mesh. And the feedback that we're hearing from all our customers that they want to unify these metrics. And the quote that we heard from multiple CEOs across the world, I am the chief information officer. I don't want to be the chief integration officer. So that's what Fabric is all about. So who heard about Fabric? Oh, okay. Friendly crowd. So Fabric is a unified data platform for their FAI. It consisted from a unified platform that holds all their data in one lake. You can connect all your data across different sources, across different SaaS systems, other data platforms. You can bring it all into one place. And with the unified governance, you can have multiple agents that work on top of all this data, from ETLs to analytics to operational database, real-time, and also BI. And that's what Fabric has done so far. It created a unified data platform for the era of AI. But the question, is it enough? Can Fabric help you and unify your business? And we're speaking about unifying the business. The question that I'm having is like, let's pick an example. I'm sure many of you have traveled here using airplanes. I hope it was uneventful and you got your luggage on time. But if you look at this domain of aviation and airplanes, there are multiple entities here. And if you look at this kind of metrics of entities and objects, there are airplanes, there are vehicles, there are gates, there are baggage, there are pilots. And if you look at this business, all of those entities has properties. As we know, the model of the airplane, but it measures like that. They have also time series data, for example, like velocity or tire pressure or weight. But more than that, including to that, they have also geospatial properties like location, etc. But those are rich entities. They go beyond analytics. They go into actions. We want to perform actions on those entities. We want to offload the baggage, for example. We want to reroute the plane. And all those entities are interconnected into mesh of relationship. There are pilots assigned to a plane. There are vehicles. They need to make sure that they bring the ground crew to their planes. And they're all interconnected. But more than that, all those entities have different policies they need to adhere to. For example, pilot certification, amount of hours that each pilot can fly the plane, what are the weather restrictions for a certain place and certain conditions in the world. And all of these entities have different objectives. The goal here is to make sure that they perform profitability across the whole company, make sure that we provide customer satisfaction across the whole fleet of customers. And that's how our teams, that's how the business think about it. The business thinks in entities, in actions, and ability to drive objectives and policies. But today, the world is different. Today, people think in schemas, in tables. If we have a question, what we do? Today, we, of course, create a report to answer that question. And that's how we get answers. But those questions are based on table and schema. They're not based on those entities. If you have a new question, then we need to go again to the data expert to create a new report based on the same table and schemas. If you look at the bigger picture here, it goes beyond analytics. We have also operation systems. Those operation systems work in parallel to our analytics stack. And all of that, it's in the context of one team, and you see the disconnect. And if you zoom out a bit to the bigger organization, now you have a bigger fragmentation. You have different teams that look on a different data state that work with different systems. And if you kind of step back and you see kind of the slice of it and how it affects the business. So if we go back to our example of aviation, what it really means. A definition of an airplane is very different between different types of teams that you have in the business. If you ask the maintenance team what plane means, it means that plane is no longer in maintenance. If you ask your finance team what the plane means, it means a plane that generates revenue. And if you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, that is really, really problematic because you create a lot of confusion for your business. You don't have a cohesive view of all your business. It's very fragmented. You are very reactive. You cannot think as a whole business. You cannot optimize your business. And that's what you're trying to solve here. Our goal here is to create a unified view of your business, taking the data, combining with the meaning, and driving action on all of this together in the business context, not isolated just only for tables and schema or the analytics space. And our goal is to make sure that we collect all those signals and we drive actions. And we want to make sure that we do it not only with our teams, but also with our AI agents that can help us to accelerate our business goals. So if we look at kind of the pattern of observing, analyzing, deciding, and acting, we need to make sure that we collect all those signals, analyze them, take a decision, and acting. We make sure that not our only teams, but also agents can work with that. But the shift that we wanted to do in operations is really look at that in the lens of our business. So the semantic understanding of what that really means. We want to look at that from the semantic understanding of airplanes, pilots, baggage, crew, and aviation. And what we need to do to make sure that we have this unified intelligence platform, we need to move from schema and analytical understanding to the business understanding of the business, a unified language for teams and AI, making sure that we are moving into actions across a single unified model across the whole business. So we are not taking a local optimization that will impact the bigger picture here. We want to make sure that the decisions I make at the global scope of the company, as we drive optimization, it will not create a downside in a different part of the business. We want to make sure that we build a trusted and reliable AI. And we'll spend quite a lot of time here in this presentation talking about how Fabric IQ powers AI and its critical part to make sure that AI hallucinates less. But more than that, it's grounded to the truth of your business. And the last but not least, and that's super important, again, a bit about myself. I was on the Power BI team when it started, and then Fabric Real-Time Intelligence. A big philosophy of us is making sure that we democratize the data. We empower the people that know the business to take the right decisions. And that's also here. And that's why we make sure that we enable the business owners that know the domain, so they will not be stopped and backed by data experts to get the decisions they need to do. And that's what we're announcing today. Fabric IQ. Fabric IQ is a new workload, the sixth workload in Fabric, that really allows you to do that. So let's see a quick video that summarizes that.
Data is the fuel that powers AI, but data alone is not enough. AI needs an understanding of what the data means, how things relate, and which actions turn insight into impact. Introducing Microsoft Fabric IQ, the semantic foundation that unites data, business meaning, and action into a single unified view of your organization. Model your business using visual, no-code tools, so the people who know your company can adapt it as fast as it evolves. Create entities over all your data in one lake, not only your analytical data and Power BI semantic models, but also your operational, geospatial, and real-time data. Navigate your business the way it actually runs, not by tables and schemas, but by organizational concepts. And ultimately, elevate your teams and your AI to ask questions, reason, and act in the language of your business. Powered by this live, unified view of your organization. Trigger actions in real time using rules and empower AI operations agents to run your business, because now they understand its live context. Connect Fabric IQ seamlessly with Foundry IQ, uniting your live business context with the knowledge captured in your documents and communications. This combination from Microsoft gives developer-built agents in Foundry unmatched context, so they can make decisions you trust and continuously optimize your operations for superior outcomes. From unified data to unified intelligence, this is IQ in Microsoft Fabric.
So what do you think? And if we dive deep more into what's beneath Fabric IQ, and we'll dive in those demos in a minute, the underlying abilities here is to provide these semantic models that you're all invested in from Power BI and really elevate them to Ontology that will be demoed soon, and also connect it to the physical asset, the digital twin, and also graphs to show those relationships and connections, and again, of course, to Power AI. And speaking of Power AI, we started with the Unify data estate. That's one leg, making sure that you have all your data across your different systems, across on-prem, cloud, other SaaS systems, other data platform in one place. And once you have all this data in one place, then you can have a unified data platform, making sure that you have your right engines to work on the right data. But that's not enough for AI. For AI, you need to have a unified intelligence platform. That means that your AI works on this ontology, on this rich ability to drive actions on your business meaning. And that's the integration that we are having throughout Fabric and outside with Foundry and other tools in the Microsoft ecosystem. And the advantages of Fabric IQ is making sure that it's layered on this unified foundation in one lake, making sure that they can use of all those billions of semantic models that already run in your organization. So how many people here use Power BI? Thank you. So you don't need to start from scratch. You can start using your Power BI semantic models and elevate them to the ontology for your organization. We support the connection for streaming and near real-time data with geospatial data, with connection to your M365 documents, and making sure that we enable your business agility in an easy way. So instead of hearing me blubbering about that, let's hear from one of our customers, Truman from 𝗦𝗲𝗀, to tell a bit about the company and what they're doing. Thank you, Truman, for joining us.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here.
So tell us a bit about yourself, about 𝗦𝗲𝗀.
Yeah, Truman Seto, Manager of Operations Planning at 𝗦𝗲𝗀 Power. So 𝗦𝗲𝗀 is the utility for Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Some technical specs, about 40 substations, 221 miles of transmission circuits, distribution-wise, 5,600 miles of distribution, about 600,000 metered customers, and our peak 1824 megawatts, population about 1.6 to 1.7 million.
So what were your challenges? Like why you need Fabric IQ? Like what you're trying to achieve? Like what made you to look into the product?
Yeah, I think it really starts with the problem. So I'm going to walk you through a power outage. When an outage occurs, it's immediate. Multiple groups will activate to locate, assess, and ultimately restore power. Many challenges in real time. Weather can change, additional outages can occur, and it's around the clock, 24/7, 365, and we're counting every minute. So ultimately, customer expectation is what's key. Utilities have KPIs for reliability they gotta maintain. Now, the story of the outages is one, but learning from them, understanding what went wrong, what went right is very important because it will ultimately guide your strategy and to address kind of the biggest concerns on your grid. However, there's a challenge.
So maybe you can go through the challenge and like what Power Ontology means for 𝗦𝗀𝗀.
Yeah, so ontology is a term that is quite new to us. However, what we're facing today at 𝗦𝗀𝗀 is a lot of different dispersed data sets. You know, we have weather data, we have GIS data, we have SCADA, PI, historian data, we have work orders from the assets and crews, and we have something called an OMS, an outage management system, that will track how many people are out of power and how they're gonna get back on track. Now, all these systems are dispersed. They don't talk to each other naturally, and I'd say previous attempts to merge the time series and static information has been quite difficult and confusing. And we find that these databases kind of are isolated subject matter domains. So enter this ontology conversation. So if I were to talk about the grid, it's a mesh. We have substations, breakers, transmission lines, distribution, transformers, meters, distributed energy resources, all connected by overhead lines, underground cables, and it forms a mesh. Now, we have seen this fabric graph, and it matches quite well. The nodes, vertices kind of reflect quite nicely, and Fabric's giving us the opportunity to add ontology. So business domain knowledge can now be mapped on top of this physical grid. And that really unlocks the potential here.
So what was the challenge before that? Like, why do you need it? Like, why everyone here in the audience would need that in a different domains? Like, what was your challenge that we're trying to solve? I understand multiple data sets, but like, what is the critical impact for you? Like, what you can do now that you might not have been able to done before?
Yeah, I'd say previously it was very inefficient and isolated. So analysis coming from different groups and different business domains are seeing portions of the grid from their perspective, whether it's from the field, control center operator, SCADA system, reliability analysis. All these things are separate. However, now the opportunity with Ontology is to map it to one grid. A quick overview is time series information flowing through Event House, static information flowing into one lake, and then being mapped to that physical grid, and Ontology to allow us to enjoy the Fabric graph analysis, so advanced querying of the graph, agents of natural language querying, notebooks, so classic ML and data engineering, and activator, so notes and alerts to end business units. So this is going to help us paint that full story, the real story that's happening in operations. And
can you tell me about like what's next for you, like where you're planning to take it forward?
Yeah, no, we really want to tune this, the agentic experience, really understand the questions that are being asked and ensure the answers are hitting the mark. Forecasting analysis-wise, we almost want to redo our work and now map it to this Ontology as it can be our single pane of glass. And then continued refinement. One exciting part is the two-way power flow of our grid. We have an onset of a lot of renewables on our grid, and we can actually use this Ontology to map that two-way flow. So, you know, big thanks to the Microsoft field team and Max Ops and Data Ops team for making this private preview a reality here.
No, thank you. And what is the early feedback from your team, from the business side, how they feel about it?
I'd say that our group has worked with Power BI for probably 10 years now.
Yeah.
And it seems like a very natural progression moving from Power BI semantic models now into this mapping of graph and Ontology. So it's been very positive, user-friendly, and the team's been great to work with.
Cool. Thank you so much, Truman. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's exactly the shift in operations that I was talking about. It's not enough just to observe, analyze, and collect all this data. We need to look in the lens of the business. And in the case of NMAX is the lens of the power grid, the transmissions, the weather data, the geodata. And once you collect all this together, then you can easily apply AI to it. And I would like to invite Chafia, Group Product Manager for Ontology, to dive deeper into what we are building here.
Thank you, Yitzhak. Hi, everyone. I'm Chafia. I'm the GPM for Ontology in Fabric.IQ. And so today, as Yitzhak mentioned, the Ontology is what bridges the gap between your data. So how do you go from that data to that semantic understanding? It gives you actually the model of your business end-to-end, including the entities, the relationships. It captures what matters, and also it helps you define what are the actions that will drive the best outcomes. So when we talk about an Ontology, there are a few core concepts. So the entity types and the relationship types. So let's have a closer look. The entity types basically are the real-world concepts that your business manages. So think like the planes, the flights, the pilots, and so on. And it also defines the characteristic that describe these entities. And like this characteristic will go kind of from data to logic. So let's kind of start with the properties. The properties defines actually the state of the entity. So for example, like location, fuel level, aircraft model, and so on. And these are connected actually to the data that you have. So this could be streams, tables, and so on. And then next we have the rules. The rules are the operations that can be performed either on or about the entities. So for example, like we could reroute an airplane, schedule a repair, notify the pilots, and so on. And these actions actually can be performed or triggered by the operational systems that run your business. The next are the semantics. So the semantics are basically the condition and the constraints, the policies that define your business. And so basically, this could be sorry, the rules, I'm just like looking. The rules are actually the conditions that manage the actions. And the next are the semantic, as we were saying, the constraints and the policies that describe like the logic of your business. So this could be like the rest time of the crew, that could be the SLAs, threshold, and so on. And then last but not least are the objectives, and this could be operational or strategic, so they could be short-term or long-term, and this could be, for example, how do we increase the satisfaction of our passengers, or how do we meet, for example, the longer-term sustainability goals. So the other part of the ontology are the relationship types, and these actually capture the semantics of how things relate in your system. So for example, how passengers are booked on specific flights, and how pilots are allowed, for example, to fly only on specific cargo type, and so on. So all of these concepts come together to define your ontology. And the ontology is not only the concepts, like it's not only the abstract concept, it's live. The entities, the relationships, the actions, the rules, and the properties are connected to your data, and effectively creating the real-time view of the business, becoming the foundation for any organization that wants to stay ahead. And Yitzhak, tell us a little bit more why this is important.
And thank you, Shaf. And that's like really how business thinks about it. Business are not thinking about tables and schemas. They think about business objects. And this ability to up-level those tables and schemas to the business concepts, and you've seen kind of the full spectrum of things that you can define this ontology kind of to show the view of the land at what can be done, the holistic view of it. It's really what enables our customers really to create those ontologies that work not only with the data, with the analytical data, but also they work with the operational system where you can drive those actions, when you can get feedback from those actions and drive your business. And that's what really enables our teams and also AI agents to really drive into that. And Chafia, if you want to kind of show how we build those ontologies.
So excited that as part of this week's announcement of Fabric IQ, we are adding a new item to the Fabric family, which is the ontology item. And the ontology item basically gives your business and technical users low-code and no-code experiences to create and manage ontologies. Basically, it turns actually the business concept processes into entities, relationships, properties, and to mirror actually the real-world operations. And you can start creating your ontology either by leveraging your existing semantic models, like through a single click, or you can also start a complete new ontology. And you bring this ontology to life by binding your data that sits in tables, real-time streams, geospatial data to your ontology.
So I think we might scare them and a bit confused, but let's show you how it's easy done and you understand it's much nicer than you think.
It always is. So for this demo, I will be acting as the lead Fabric developer for the airline operations. And my goal today is to partner with our operations team to create a full unified view of our business. So we start here in the Power BI semantic model, which we use daily for BI and reporting. It captures a set of data that is relevant for our business, but today, we want to expand it to the operational world. So in one single click, I can generate the ontology here. And what the ontology does is actually not only connects the tabular data that exists in my Power BI semantic model, but also gives me the opportunity to add geospatial, real-time, actions, and rules, and connect all of that back to our business objectives. So here, I get an ontology. I see flights, airline, bookings, and so on.
There was no magic. It's like one click of a button. That's what happened in between those screens.
And it connects actually all these entities not only through the data keys, but through the business relationships and semantics. And I see kind of the routes have kind of multiple airports, and airports will have multiple runways. And here is where I can now start adding more context, live context from my business operations. So for this case, for this scenario, I want to add a little bit more about the runways conditions of my airport. So I select the relevant data here, and I get a quick preview of like the visibility, contamination, and so on. And in a similar way, for any entity, I can add weather data, turnaround events, bring in data from different sources into kind of this single unified view. And more than that, we can actually bring in Power BI reports and link them to our entities, so we get kind of a holistic view of how we manage our operations. Fast forward, after I finish kind of enriching and editing this ontology, I get a far richer live context about my operation. I see the flight status, the locations, I see the semantic relationships, and all of this kind of is in the ontology live, fed by our data, and it's ready for use by our teams. Now you would ask, how can we use this ontology?
How we can use it, Chafia?
Yes. So we don't stop there. We actually take it further. The ontology item gives you different ways to use the ontology. So you get a preview of your entities where you can navigate either at the entity level or at the instance level using your business language. So it's no more like schema tables, but like, hey, entities, runways, and so on. And we give you also the ability to overlay geospatial insight based on that kind of context and add rules that will turn the tacit knowledge of your teams into automated actions. And one more thing, the ontology comes actually with an out-of-the-box graph that will help your teams reveal the hidden patterns, see the dependencies, the ripple effect of any condition, thanks to the multi-hop relationships that you define in your ontology. And this enables your team actually to move from like the siloed optimizations that have been happening, like as we have heard from Truman, for example, to a true system-level intelligence. And now you'd ask, okay, show me how can we do that? So we'll get to the demo. And so in this case, so we assume that our developer has finished editing our ontology, and we want to see a few different ways of how we can use it. So I land in this view where I get a context about my flights, and I see all the BI data, I see the real-time weather data, as well as the geospatial insight. And with Fabric Maps, I actually get a fleet level view of all my flight, and I get real-time activity of the air traffic, as well as the activity on the ground. And the heat map allows me to quickly see where we have potential delays. And we can see that, for example, the JFK is impacted, and we want to learn more and understand what's going on. So we would navigate into the runways entity. And here, again, similar, I get a quick view of the visibility, friction, and the snow-wet condition of the runways. And the ontology doesn't stop there. It's not only entities and data. I can add actions and rules. I can embed logic to my ontology. So here, I'm going to add a rule that triggers actions when the runway condition is high so that the passengers are proactively notified with delays, and our operations team on the ground can also send sweepers to resolve the issue before kind of it becomes like even worse. And now back to the relationships. So the semantic relationships that I have in my ontology gives me the ability to see how things relate both at the entity level and the instance level. I get like a full view, a full graph view, again, low code, no code. You can explore your business, and we have seen that like we had issues in JFK, so I can go and filter on the JFK airport, and here I will run my, my query, again, all low code, no code, and I get a beautiful view that is focused on JFK. I can quickly zoom in here, and I see that we have a poor condition that is affecting the runway 25R. And it doesn't stop there. Thanks to the relationship, the semantic relationship that we have, we see the cascading effect. We see the gates that are impacted, and we see the ground service tasks that will require rescheduling. So with Fabric Ontology, this airline operations team is able to create and achieve a unified view of all their operations, like harnessing the full power of BI tabular data, real-time data, geospatial, actions, rules, and so on, effectively creating a robust graph that powers their whole operations. And with that, back to you, Yitzhak.
Thank you so much, Chafia. So I hope that you've seen how easy it can be done, but everything that you see in the UI, of course, is all supported with APIs and CI/CD. But the idea here is to show what you can do. As Chafia said, you're moving not only from BI, but for time series data, geospatial, connections, and really creating a full knowledge graph of your business. But again, we cannot not speak about AI, right? So that's how humans operate and run their business. But I want to speak about AI and how we can enable AI to be much more precise, much better, and much more relevant for the business. And today when you run our AI, our agents, it works on the tables, on the schemas that we have today. What happens there is that there are multiple definitions. If you look for a table for airplane, there are probably going to be 50 different tables. And then the question is like how the LLM will know. Okay, they are smart, but how smart they are. And not only that, we want to make sure that we're giving them the right business context. And giving the right business context is not only just the data, it's also the metadata, the relationship between different entities, and also the actions. Yes, of course, they can access hundreds and thousands of different MCP servers to understand what actions they can perform, but that's not enough. You want to make sure that they're running the right action on the right entity. So if we look at the spectrum of AI that we are having in our business, it goes from pro developer that can write their code for custom agents to business users that we provide out-of-the-box capabilities to deploy those agents. But the main idea here, that everything runs on Fabric IQ. So all this semantic model, this ontology, is powering those agents. And if you look at the kind of Microsoft level, we are speaking here about from Foundry, Microsoft Foundry for Procode, to agents in Fabric. So with that, I would like Tessa to speak more about AI and what we are announcing here today.
Great, thank you. As Yitzhak said, we can't leave a session without talking about AI, of course. And one of the really exciting announcements that we have, you probably saw yesterday, of course, we have Fabric IQ, we have Foundry IQ, so we're going to show you a little bit about how these two are working together. Because all of this information that we're bringing into Fabric IQ, into the ontology, it's really helpful for the business, as Chafia was showing, for the team that's there looking, but we also want to empower AI to leverage the same capabilities. And so I'm going to go right actually into a demo. And so here you can see that I'm in Foundry, and I'm going to start by actually start building right here. And the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to go over to the Build tab and start by connecting my Foundry experience directly to Fabric IQ. So all of that information, all about my airlines, my airports, the runways, everything you heard from Chafia is now going to be connected directly into this custom agent that I'm building. So I'm going to go directly into using it in an agent. I have an airline agent, and you can see I've connected it to that same knowledge. And then let's just start asking questions. And we're going to ask questions about poor runways. And if you think about the word poor runways, for example, this is a business concept, but you can see it understands it. And not just that, it founds that same runway and airport that Chafia was saying, which she found manually from the view before. Okay, so that's great. So I know JFK has a problem on this specific runway. Let me ask a few more questions. I see that same task that needs to be scheduled. I see the flights that are impacted. And all this was done by connecting my agent directly to my business ontology and the understanding there. So of course, use Foundry if you're going to make those custom agents, but within Fabric, we also have quite a few experiences that help jumpstart your agentic experiences, and one of them being data agents. Data agents are your virtual analysts, the team members, and in the same way, just as easily, you can connect your data agent directly to the ontology, and this helps save some time. You don't have to add additional instructions. By connecting it to the ontology, in addition to all the data that's connected, it can benefit from all of the understanding and semantics that you've put in there.
But wait, we have something more.
hopefully you saw, we're also very excited to be announcing the new operations agent. Now this is available today in Fabric. Go try it if you haven't already. Operations agents, now you can think of them as your virtual operations team member. And so very quickly you can connect them to all the same information, all of the different business semantics and data across your organization, and help them run your operations. And so let's jump right into a demo. And so here you can see I'm in Fabric, of course, and just like anything else, I'm going to start by creating an item, and I'm going to create the operations agent item, give it the right name, put it in the right location. This helps make sure I can manage all the right permissions and everything around it. And just like that, I'm brought into our operations agent canvas, if you will. And so here you can see on the left-hand side, I can configure the agent. I'm going to start by providing some business goals, very similar to if I was going to onboard a new team member, tell it what it wants to accomplish. And in this case, this is going to help with our maintenance crews for our airline operations. I can provide some instructions, some more specifics, maybe about specific data fields to look for. But actually, the real power is going to come in when I connect it to the ontology. So all of this context that I'm providing for this specific agent is local, but then it's going to connect to the ontology. That's that single source of truth across my entire organization, and that's going to bring in the different data, the different rules, the semantics, everything that you heard today. I can also add custom actions, so any actions that are already in the ontology are brought in, but I can also refine the specific agent further. So here you can see I'm adding an action that can help set up the entire system, and now you can see I've added a few more, and my agent is ready to kind of add to the team. So I hit save, and just like that, the playbook is going to start generating on the right-hand side. And this is going to help me understand what the agent understands. So you're going to see that it pulled specific terms and concepts you see directly from my ontology. So it understands what a runway is, understands the specific properties. You can see that it has the rules that were brought in. And this is essentially what it's going to start looking for across my business. And just like that, my team member is going to show up where my team works, directly in Microsoft Teams, and you can see it in the channel. And immediately it's identified something, and it sends the team an alert. It explains what it found about the specific runway. It gives more details so I understand why this was identified. And even better, it actually recommends an action for me to take. If you remember, we had a few different actions, and it picks the right one. Asks me to confirm a couple things. But just like that, I have a virtual team member that is running 24/7 and helping me scale my operations.
Thank you, Tessa.
Yeah, thank you.
So that really shows you the power of AI, and with Fabric IQ, with ontologies, make it real. It's much easier to create those virtual agents that are really working with your data, with your business, and helping you accelerate. But speaking about AI, I want to show you and invite another customer, Tony from Kyndryl, that will talk here about how they build their own platform to enable other customers to work with AI. So thank you, Tony, for joining us.
Thank you.
So tell us a bit about yourself, your role, about Kyndryl, what we are trying to achieve here.
Yeah, so I'm the VP for Consult, supporting the security and resilience team at Kyndryl. And I did a few things in my life, startup, which I sold, EY, boutique, and now I'm helping Kyndryl. And I'm sure some people will say, I don't know Kyndryl, so let me explain. Kyndryl is a spin-off of Kyndryl, and although we feel that we are a startup of 15 billion revenue per year, managing the most critical infrastructures of the biggest clients in the world. And to do that, of course, we have a big security team. And just give you another stat, we are managing more than 70 million identities on a yearly basis.
Very small spin-off of IBM, only 50 billion.
Yes.
So let's talk a bit about AI, kind of what are the challenges that you're seeing, how you think about AI, and how you think about Fabric IQ that can help you there.
Well, I think first of all, we definitely see, all of us in the room, the value of AI and Agentic AI. But we also need the decisive action to make it work. Because if you look at the stats, and I have a few here on the slide, we're seeing that we need to make sure that it's aligned to business, that we take the human factor into account, but also trust. And for me, as security resilience, trust is really important, right? So trust is the foundation to create the value for us for Agentic AI. And if we talk about trust, it's about governance, it's about security, and it's about compliance. And we really try to help our clients to build organization foundations to help them build it secure and smart so they can reuse it, but also run it in a secure, resilient, and compliant way. But,
yeah, but maybe kind of for the audience, kind of to better understand the scale that we're talking here about, like your vision and our vision, of course, and everyone in the room, I hope, hopes, is that in each organization, there are going to be hundreds and thousands of agents.
Yes.
So the question, how we monitor them, how we have control, how we think about them.
Well, that's why I love Fabric IQ. So we've launched the Kyndryl Agentic AI Digital Trust solution, and which is taking care of the identities and access, data access, and the visibility, where we're already using Fabric IQ, the card wheels. But we will have many organizations, agents. And to do this in scale, we're using Fabric IQ to create a ontology, a digital twin, to test the behavior of the agents, how they are behaving and how they are communicating to each other. And that helps us to validate before you take an action in production that is actually going to work out and that they are acting and behaving within the guardrails set out in the policies by the company, but also regulations and other relevant external policies.
Yeah, and I heard that you have a surprise for us.
Yeah, we created a demo. I mean, we love cloud, but we also do a bit of data centers. So we created a simple example for a data center on how this is working.
So let's play it.
To demonstrate how these components work together, we created a simple use case. We created an ontology of a data center in Fabric IQ, modeling the major components, binding entities to the data in the lakehouse and the streaming data in the event house. We enabled agentic AI agents to use GQL to interrogate this model and retrieve real-time data. To show this in action, we created a use case in which Sarah receives an alert that power consumption is spiking in the data center. She starts an AI session, and after investigation, she decides to shut down a chiller. The agents will start their work to process the request, and we can monitor the activity via the observability dashboard within Kyndryl Agentic AI Digital Trust, which was built using the Microsoft Insights dashboard. Here we can see all the activities and interactions undertaken by the agents, providing full traceability throughout the agentic workflow. A policy check by the agent confirmed that at least one chiller must be operational at all times. The agent then used GQL to query the near real-time data in the digital twin of the data center, which revealed that shutting down a chiller would violate this policy. The red circle in this agentic workflow illustrates how Kyndryl Agentic AI Digital Trust intervened to prevent a policy breach. The final step is for the agent to inform the user that the request could not be completed, along with the reasons why.
And that's kind of a concrete example here, like how you guys can really think about using Fabric IQ to really monitor the agents. And I feel it's kind of endless loop, agents, monitoring agents, but that's the future. So any kind of thoughts, what's next for you?
No, this was of course a simple example just to show it in a minute, but we're working with a critical infrastructure, a bank, a oil company to put this in life because they see the value. But the capability to validate this in an ontology before you put it in production in those critical environments for our clients, I think they love it. So, and that's why we love to work with Fabric IQ.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you for joining us. And that's really great example how we think about Fabric IQ, how it really makes AI tangible and relevant and really productive for the business. So just to recap, we showed the different elements under Fabric IQ, starting from the semantic models, creating those ontologies, the digital twins, and the connected graph, and the demos of agents, operations, and data agents. And that's the Fabric IQ in a nutshell, really this unified intelligence platform that allows you to work with AI. There are many resources, so I recommend you to take a screenshot slide of this slide. There's many sessions that are coming. 2 already happened. There is more sessions that are coming. Sorry. Picture time. Oh. There is more session in the afternoon today. I really want to thank you, everyone, and I really want to provide feedback. There are channels to provide the feedback, and we are releasing stuff every week. So really thank you for joining us, and enjoy